Hey, so we're in week 3 of our Modern Mottos series. We've talked about being on the right side of history. We've talked about being comfortable. This past week, we've talked about being yourself, being true to yourself, and what that means. And I hear that all the time, and I see it all the time in advertisements and promotions. Be yourself, be true to yourself. And it has all kinds of different implications. It can talk about, performance and your occupation, and it can talk about culture and personality, and for sure sexual orientation and gender identity, and all kinds of big controversial kinds of topics all come back to this idea that there are certain things that are intrinsic to who you are, that you can't do anything about, and that what you really have to do is just kind of live into those things, that you can't deny them. And yet we're pretty subjective with that kind of thing, because there are lots of aspects of our identity that we don't want to live into. I'm naturally prideful, lazy, apathetic, or whatever, and for me to live into those things, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be true to those parts of myself. The good news is that actually we don't have to be slaves to ourselves and to the various parts of our identity. That the gospel tells us that actually there's an identity that we have in Jesus that kind of dwarfs all that other stuff. We talked about Galatians chapter 2, and Paul just says this thing about his identity that just blows me away. He says, I was crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. And the life that I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. That's his identity. It's all wrapped up in Jesus, in who Jesus is and what Jesus has done for him. And to me, that's the most freeing thing in the world, to know that I don't have to be true to myself in all the ways that the world kind of says, well, this and this and this is who you are and this is how you're to act, but rather that being true to myself means living a life that's all about Jesus, that depends not on my performance, but on his performance at the cross. It's just a radically different way of looking at it. So here's my one big question for you. What does it mean to be true to yourself?